Will fans of the book like the film version of Ready Player One? I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So Ernest Cline's best-selling novel, Ready Player One, is a pop culture junkie's dream come to life. It is crazy with the amount of references that are stored within the book. It ranges from movies, music, TV, video games, the whole gamut. If it's pop culture, then it's in there, and specifically 1980s pop culture. There are a lot of differences between the novel and the book, and that's to be expected. I mean, anytime we take a novel and we translate it into film, a lot of it is going to get cut out or condensed or sometimes combined. And in this, it's no different, except that I don't think it hurts the film. While the novel is heavy on the 80s and 80s trivia and music and pop culture and all of that, Spielberg, I believe, wanted to widen this to make it more accessible to more generations other than those that just grew up in the 80s. That's why you'll see things that have nothing to do with the 80s, and most of them are avatars within there, and which makes sense again, because if I'm a kid or I'm an adult playing in this virtual world, I'm going to choose an avatar that I want. Sometimes I'm going to be influenced by an old video game or a movie or something like that. Sometimes it's going to be something just completely out of my own imagination. The overarching story is that the creator of this universe, this virtual reality universe, has died. He's hidden an Easter egg someplace within this that you have to pass all kinds of tests and obstacles, and if you do that, you get to find the Easter egg, and what is contained with the Easter egg is just utter riches and control of the Oasis, which is the virtual universe. Now, everybody in society plays within the Oasis. In the opening scenes of the film, Wade Watts, who's the main character that we follow throughout this, and it's told from his perspective, especially in the novel, he's descending down these mobile homes that are stacked on each other. As he goes along, we see all kinds of people wearing these VR headsets, and they're doing all kinds of weird things. Some of them are pole dancing, some of them are boxing, some of them are sweeping or whatever. They're not actually doing anything in real life other than you see them making these movements, but in their eyes, they're there doing whatever it is that they're acting out. I think in the film, Spielberg is actually making a little bit of a social commentary because we get to see society all walking around with this virtual reality headsets on. And towards the climax of the film, you see somebody driving down the street, and it's insane to see everybody around interacting in this fake world, except that they're moving in the real world. If you've ever had the privilege to see somebody trying out VR headsets, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't, search somebody out and watch them interact on it. It's hilarious. You don't need to put it on. Watch the person wearing them. It's so funny because you don't get to see what they're seeing and they can't see themselves, and so it is just a visual awesomeness. For fans of the novel, it's great because all of the main characters are still within the movie. Spielberg hasn't changed that. He kept those in. Now, I read Ready Player One about 8 months ago, and since then I've read 36 books. Now, that's not to brag or anything else because I know a lot of people who have read a crap ton more than that within that short period of time. It's only to say that I don't totally remember every detail that was in the book. Now, if I had just read the novel and then I went to the theater to see it, I might notice a lot more differences between the two. But for me, the story flowed really nicely. The things that were left out didn't really make that big of a difference, and I understand why Spielberg did that, because you can't shove everything that was in this huge novel into a 2-hour movie. Side note, the movie's actually closer to 2.5 hours, but I didn't notice it at all. I was having so much fun watching everything. I think the villain works well in this because it's Sorrento, and he is the head of this corporation, IOI. And basically what they want to do is they want to take over the Oasis because they want to monetize it. Ty Sheridan plays Wade Watts, or Parzival as his avatar is known. He does a really good job. He's convincing, he's understated. He's not a geek, but he's not this bold hero type. He's not even the big hero type in the virtual reality world. He's just a guy trying to get by, having some fun, and then when Halliday's death happens and he learns about the Easter egg, now he's motivated to find it and win. Olivia Cooke plays Artemis, and she is outstanding as well. She is dry and droll and sarcastic and very knowledgeable. She's both tough in and out of the Oasis. We have Ben Mendelsohn, who plays Sorrento. Now, you may recognize him from Rogue One as Krennic. He does a superb job. Now, there's something with him though, and I don't know if it's actually his real teeth or if he was wearing like some something on them or something. I don't know what it was. His teeth just looked bigger than they should in his mouth. And at one point it was a little distracting because they were really close on his face. And it felt like his teeth were sticking out of his mouth even. And I don't know, I just kind of got lost in that. Whatever, what are you gonna do? The character of IROC, who is kind of a bad guy, but he's this guy who has just been in the Oasis for a really long time. He has collected all kinds of spoils, coins, gear, everything. And he's voiced by TJ Miller. And if you know that name, then you instantly know what it is. And when you hear his voice, you're like, oh my gosh, I totally know who he is. He's in Deadpool, he's in How to Train Your Dragon, he's in a whole lot of movies. And a lot of the time, he's a voice actor. But he has such a unique voice that you're just like, oh, dude, I know exactly who that is. Mark Rylance plays Halliday, and you may recognize him from Dunkirk. He's the one who is piloting the small boat that goes across the ocean, who brings his son and his son's friend with him. He does a spectacular job because he's kind of channeling a little bit of Steve Jobs and maybe some Garth from Wayne's World. He looks a little bit like him, and his mannerisms are shy and kind of just uncertain and uncomfortable around people. But he does it really well. He's insightful and he's lovable. Simon Pegg stars as Og, who is the co-founder of the Oasis. He's Halliday's best friend. And I think it's totally fitting that Simon Pegg would be in this film. And he actually probably begged or approached Steven Spielberg to be in this film because he's such a huge pop culture fan. And so for him, I mean, to be in this, and he's a geek, and not in a bad way. I mean, he's a self-proclaimed geek, and I love watching him in almost everything that he's done. I absolutely love Simon Pegg, and so I was thrilled when I found out that he was going to be in this as well. And he does an awesome job. There's a little profanity, some violence, both in the real world and the virtual world. There's no sex, and there may be some brief nudity. I'm not totally sure. I mean, it starts to be implied, and then action happens so quickly that it may or may not be in there. It happens at the Overlook Hotel in room 237. Now, if you know what I'm talking about, then you get it. If you don't, well, that's all I'm going to say about that. If you're a fan of the novel, I don't think you're going to be disappointed with the film. Spielberg executes it in such a great way. It is visually stunning. The pop culture references are still in there. If you've seen any of the interviews also with Steven Spielberg, he talks about how it was such this great feat for him to approach all of these movie studios and these movie houses who own all of this intellectual property to allow the rights for it to be shown within this. Because the book references everything. And so for them to be able to bring these in, and it's not like he's bringing in like Star Wars stuff or Mickey Mouse, he's bringing in some of the smaller things, and it's awesome because it's understated. And I can't wait to watch this over and over again because I know I'm going to see more and more little hidden gems throughout. I did hear that Spielberg's crew fought to at least get something of his in the film. He wanted to keep it out. He wanted to keep all of his stuff out of the film because he didn't want it to be distracting. Well, John, when Pirates of the Caribbean breaks down, the pirates don't eat the tourists. That's all I'm going to say. There's a hint for you of something that shows up. It's outstanding. I had a lot of fun watching Ready Player One. I think it was great from execution and storytelling, visually, just the entire package. I had a blast. I'm giving it 5 out of 5 couches. What are your thoughts on it? I'd love to hear them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, please hit the like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.